Let's move on. So Gary asked another one. If the Levitical priesthood no longer exists and Christ is a priest after the order of Melchizedek, why is there a need to follow Levitical laws? Is not the Holy Spirit our teacher? Okay, well, let's think about that. So the Levitical priesthood, what did the Levitical priesthood, what did that entail? Well, certainly it entailed the slaughter, the preparation of the animals. This happened on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, for the various feasts, and then of course happened once a year at Yom Kippur. So all of those things were part of the duties of the Levites. Now, some other jobs of the Levites, when they were not at the temple, was that they would be the judges of the cities. They would literally be the judge, right, that would adjudicate. He would preside over a case between two opposing parties, or in the case of, um, if maybe someone murdered somebody, then that would be one of the people that would take care of that. Of course, the elders of the city would also be involved in that. And then another job of the Levites they were to be teachers of the word. They were to literally instruct the people on what the word said and how to apply it to their lives. So when we're talking about Levitical laws, the idea of Levitical laws, if we're talking about what they did in the temple, what their specific priestly temple duties were, then all of those have been transferred to a new administration. They're under new management, if you will. It's like when you drive by a restaurant and you see the sign that says under new management, right? And so you're to think, oh boy, there's that restaurant I haven't gone for a while because the last time I was there, the service was terrible and the place was a mess and I just don't want to go back. But now it's in new management, okay? Same restaurant, same food, but it's going to be done in a much better way. That's kind of the idea, is that we have the same sacrifices, we have all the same functionality, but now all of the things that the Levites used to do are now being taken care of by Jesus. But here's the really cool part about it, is that his blood had to be shed just once, and his blood was then applied to those various sacrifices. Most importantly, of course, would have been the Yom Kippur sacrifice. That was the one that was really significant, which we read about in Hebrews chapter 7. So that one, as well as chapter 8 and parts of chapter 9. Okay, so those are the things that Jesus has subsumed. Insofar as the Holy Spirit is leading us, guiding us, well, sure, but that really isn't something new. I mean, King David said, don't take your Holy Spirit from me. King David talked about the Holy Spirit. They knew about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit was moving, but he was not indwelling in the way that he is today. So the Holy Spirit was still active in the days before Jesus, but that his interaction with us is that he's actually dwelling inside of us as the down payment until, it's not the down payment for God, it's down payment to us, right? So God's like, I'm gonna give you a new body until I do, because I'm not ready for that phase, but here's a down payment, here's the Holy Spirit, and when I give you a new body, then you'll get the whole kit and caboodle, right? And so again, what Levitical laws are we really talking about? I guess that would be the question that I would have. What Levitical laws are you actually referring to, other than the priestly temple kind of duties? I can't really think of any that we would need to say, we don't need to do that. Because if you take a look at the 10 Commandments and then the so-called 613. By the way, I did a video on that. I called it the 613 Laws of Love. In that video, I talk about how the 613 is a number that is certainly a traditional number. I'm not convinced that there have to be 613 laws. In fact, I go through all 613, and I show that many of them are just duplicates. It's said here, then it's said here, just slightly differently, but it's the same thing. I kind of color code it so it's a little easier to follow along. So go ahead and check that out. But really, when we boil them down, we're getting to Well, to 10. And those 10 are coming down to 1. The one law is to love. And then the question is how, well, love who, right? Well, love God. So there's a section for that. And so out of this side, love God, love my neighbor. So loving God, then that branches out, right? So it's like the branches on a tree. You have one branch, then branches out, and then that branch branches out. And that's the same idea. We have one law, that's the trunk, that's love, and then that branches out into 2, love God, love your neighbor, and then that branches out even to even more. If you love God, don't take his name in vain. He's the one God, right? Don't make graven images. Keep the Sabbath. That's something that God thinks is pretty important. Honor your father and your mother. We could argue if that goes on the God side or the human side, but anyway, it goes in there. If you love your neighbor, don't murder him, right? If you love your neighbor, don't steal from your neighbor. If you love your neighbor, don't steal his wife, or don't steal her husband, or whatever it may be. If you love your neighbor, don't bear false witness against your neighbor. And if you love your neighbor, don't covet his stuff. Right? Those are pretty clear. But then the question is, okay, well, I happened to kill my neighbor. I didn't mean to. What happens? This is called manslaughter, right? We're in the woods. I'm using my axe. The axe head flies off and hits my neighbor in the head, and it kills him. Right? I did not mean to kill my neighbor. I did kill my neighbor, but I didn't mean to. So now what? So then the question is, okay, how do we deal with those? This person was not acting in a hateful way, wasn't trying to kill him. He happened to kill him, but he didn't mean to kill him. So what do we do with it? Right? So that's what happens when we just keep branching out as to what does it look like to love your neighbor? What does it look like to not murder your neighbor? Okay, you killed your neighbor, but you didn't mean to kill your neighbor. How does that fall in? And so those are the various laws that we have, and I think they're all good. I can't find any laws that we ought to do away with. If you can find some, please let me know. I would be very interested in the laws that you think that we should absolutely get rid of.